Hello and welcome to another episode of Feeding Fatty. I'm your host, Roy.
I'm Terry.
So we're the podcast that's chronicling my journey. Terry, my helper through this journey of wellness, losing some weight, getting in better shape. And from time to time, we have, professionals in their field that come on, and today is no different. Terry, I'll let you make our introduction of Jeremy and Zach.
All right. Zach Tucker and Jeremy Grater are the founders and hosts of The Fitness. For nearly a decade, they've pushed themselves to learn more about their own physical and emotional and mental health. This has created a passion for using their acquired knowledge to help others. As hosts of the show for over 2 years, they've had the opportunity to speak to a wide range of guests, including some of the biggest names in health and wellness. Zach and Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for taking time out of y'all's day to be with us. I guess we'll throw it out there and see kind of what's new. As we were talking in pre-show, some different new weight equipment, some things out there. Jeremy said he has started running. So we'll just kind of, first off, it'd be nice just to find out, kind of how you guys found yourself here.
Yeah, I'll start off because I think my story goes all the way back to being a baby, of just being set up on a, poor starting line in life. I had some heart defects. I had an absent mother, lots of issues, lots of trauma as a child, which led to tons and tons of overeating. And at one point in my life, I was, close to 300 pounds and eating terrible, not exercising. So I was, not in great shape. And over, the last 20 years, I've made small little changes to turn the health around, to make myself, look better, feel better. And then I had to focus on the mental health. And it was a long, long journey. And Jeremy was also following behind on that as well. At some point, I was giving him some advice. And we sat down one day and we're like talking about being vulnerable, about the journey that we're on, and talking about the struggle and how hard it is. And we came to the conclusion that we need to get this out there, and we need to share these conversations with other people, especially men who are sometimes afraid to share their feelings.
Wow, that's basically a carbon copy of where we were. I've struggled. I can definitely go back and see, I'm kind of the opposite. As a kid, I was very skinny, like to the point people are like, oh my gosh, you got to eat to live. And then as an adult, definitely 4 or 5 stages where, put on 20 pounds, 25 pounds at this stage for this life change. And then, now I find myself here, and it's hard because, we do good sporadically. We can do good for a couple months. And then it's like, we have an event change, and then things change, and I typically go back to my old ways. And so, we talk a lot about that. Surgery may be an option for people, but for me, I always thought if I don't change the way I think, then I'll never, I'll just go back to my old ways. So anyway, but thanks for relating that story. I mean, I think it is good to be vulnerable. And that's why, Terry encouraged me. She's like, hey, you need to get this out there because people are struggling. So anyway, Jeremy, what's your story?
Similar, not quite the same trauma as a child. Mine was much more garden variety, alcohol in the family and kind of absent father sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Both parents working. So a lot of, latchkey kid of the 80s sort of thing. And it is funny. I remember it was around 3rd grade when I really developed some really bad eating habits. And it was like my best friend would come over and we would just hang out and watch TV and raid the pantry during every commercial break. And
Right.
that set me on a course of doing that for far too long. Yo-yo dieted most of my life, and got into my career, and about midway through my career, I really started recognizing a lot of imposter syndrome, and really feeling like, man, one of these days they're going to figure out they made a huge mistake hiring me, and they're going to show me the door, and that lasted for about 10 years, and I finally started getting into some therapy, and that turned my life around. My therapist introduced me to meditation. And that really helped, sort of calm all of that noise and quiet a lot of those voices that told me I wasn't good enough. Yeah, I still, don't get me wrong, I battle every single day. I've fought depression my entire life. But meditation was the thing that set me on the course to doing other things. Along the way, I had a bike crash, got injured pretty badly. But I was finding that through biking, I was also meditating. It was just this very in the moment experience where the whole point is to not die on the way to work. And you have to be so in the moment and so focused on what's happening right now that I started trying to push that into other areas of my life. And like Zach said, along the way, he and I met through just through parent groups. Our kids were friends, and we started hanging out, and we were just having these really authentic conversations. And that's something I've always looked for in a relationship with any of my friends is, who can I have real conversations with, and who am I talking about the Mariners with, and who do I want to spend my time with, especially because the Mariners suck. So, but like Zach said, the more we had these conversations, just camping and whatever, we were just like, we don't hear enough guys talking like this. And so, like he said, we just felt like this is a show that needs to exist.
Yeah, for the rest of the baseball world out there, you may want to tell them who the Mariners are.
Oh, they're this little upstart from the northwest corner of the United States.
Oh, well, we have the Rangers. I mean, come on.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah, okay. You feel my pain. You feel my pain.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, that's why we holler for the Red Sox or the Yankees.
Good choice.
Gotta root for a winner.
Yeah. So, let's talk a little bit about that because, you're right. The good thing about me, I'm to an age that's like, I am who I am. And I mean, just because I don't admit that I'm overweight to myself, it doesn't mean that other people that look at me can't figure that out. So, I mean, at some point you just have to say, hey, I got to own this. But, it's the funny thing for me is I don't think about myself as being overweight or, I don't picture myself as old either. I'm thinking like that 25-year-old in better shape self. That's just who I am until, you walk by a mirror or try to put some clothes on after being in quarantine for a year. And it's like, oh my goodness, things are different. But so let's talk about the difference in mind shift, body, habit shifts, things like that. Was there a point that for y'all, either one, that it was your mind engaged and then that's where your habits followed, or did you kind of get on that path to habits and then the mind followed after that, or some form of that?
So my first real big change was, so I used to smoke cigarettes as well, and ate at McDonald's every day. I mean, there was some pretty bad habits there, and it was my mind shifted because of a comment that my boss made, and I interviewed for the job, and I decided to wear a nicotine patch that day so I didn't smell like cigarette smoke. And then I got the job and I got hired. And my first day, my boss looked at me and said, "Oh, you smoke. If I had known that, I would have never hired you."
Oh, wow.
Right? Like, that hit me really hard. And I was like, wow, this habit, this unhealthy thing is now going to be a detriment to my professional career.
Yeah.
So that was the first step of like, well, these are gone. And my mind started shifting of what else am I doing that's bad for me, that will, not look good in my professional career. And that's when I started running and doing the little things. But that was the main shift for me, was this external judgment from somebody who said something like that. And it just completely 180 degree my thought process of what I was doing to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And somebody else may have, you always want to be in control. You want to think like feel like you're in control, but it's for you to be able to recognize that and actually act on it. Those are the keys right there, just going ahead and acting on something that was a judgment call to you. That's good.
Yeah. And acting on it was, I say, I quit smoking, right? That was probably one of the hardest things I ever did in my entire life. Like, that is no joke, not easy. So, it's easy to say now,
No.
but, at the time it was incredibly difficult, very painful, and a big struggle, but it was worth it to make that change.
And I think I've had probably 3 really significant moments that really changed everything for me. And one was when I had the dumbest knee injury you've ever heard of in your life. I don't know if you guys have this out there, but Amazon, they deliver groceries. Yeah.
Yeah.
And our daughter was very young. She's like still in the crib. And one morning the Amazon guy shows up at like 6 a.m. and he's dropping the groceries off, and the dog loses his mind, starts barking. And if you've ever had kids, you know that anyone who wakes up your kid deserves to be punished.
Yes.
So I rolled out of bed to like quickly try and quiet my dog, and somehow like rolled my knee and just collapsed on the ground. Couldn't walk. Totally hurt my knee, literally getting out of bed. And it was the stupidest injury. And so I started going to physical therapy for it. And the physical therapist sort of learned about my background and all that. And she said, if you don't get on a bike, you're going to end up replacing both of your knees. And I was like, wow, okay, I can do that. So I bought a bike on Craigslist and started biking to work. And it was funny. I was having a conversation with my brother about it. And I was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, it's a 10-mile ride. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this every day. And he's like, dude, you just need to decide you're that weird guy that bikes to work every day. Just make that mental shift and you'll do it. And he was absolutely right. Literally the next day I started biking to and from work every day. So that was the first one. Another one was, like I mentioned, I yo-yo dieted my entire life. And, the conversations that I was having with Zach, we were camping one weekend, sitting around the campfire, and he was talking about how he had just lost 40 pounds or something in a few months doing the keto diet. And like most conversations I often have with Zach, I started with, you're crazy. How do you do that? That's insane. Okay, I got to try it. And so I tried it, and I lost 70 pounds using just the keto diet and just like some light exercise and a little bit of fasting, and came off in a few months. So that was the other one. And the other was, I've battled depression my entire life, on and off of various meds to try and curb it. And none of them really worked for me. And it was shortly after my bike crash, I was on some opioids for a while. I was like, man, these are really good. And so I stopped them after like a week, because like this is a dangerous road to go down. And once I stopped taking those, I also stopped taking my antidepressants. And then it was New Year's, and I had just a few beers, like nothing crazy. Woke up the next day with a hangover and just was like, I am just done. Like those few beers were not worth feeling like this. Literally quit drinking. And that was like 3 or 4 years ago now. And those three things have been, there's just is this really locked in mental shift where I just went, I'm done living that way. Yeah. I'm going to live this way now. And those three things I've never really looked back on.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I can relate to the Amazon incident, because I had almost a similar one. Usually they come in the afternoon or whatever. And so we live out in kind of in the wilderness. And so the front camera went off, and usually it's like a varmint, armadillo, or raccoon or something walking across. So I just rolled over, pulled up my phone and looked at it, and there's this car sitting up on the road that just won't leave. And so, I did the same thing. I catapulted out of bed over both dogs and, threw the shoes and, slipped on the floor getting out there. And it's just the Amazon grocery. I'm like, who delivers groceries?
There's a car in our space.
Yeah. Who delivers groceries at 6:15 in the morning? Good.
I forgot to tell him. 6 and 8.
I was going to talk a little bit about, Zach mentioned opinions of others. And it's funny because being a heavy person, when I look at heavy people, I still have negative thoughts. Let me just put it that way. And I think, and then, but I don't ever think about people thinking that of me. And so when you really stop and think about, oh my gosh, all these, negative opinions that people form of me just because they see me without even meeting me or knowing anything. Now, I try not to make the cover of the Walmart people page on Facebook with, my pants riding down and my shirt riding up. I do try to stay, totally covered up, but still, I mean, it's just like people view you as inferior or damaged or something, but I don't know. And then I think about that hasn't been enough to change me. I mean, it's like, I still continue on doing these things. So I don't know. It's, I got to give you credit for being able to, make that change based on that, because I wished I could. It's just been a struggle, finding that thing that works, that continues. And we talked a little pre-show about, I'm good for about 2-3 months of something. then if we have a little change in the way life goes, that, we were doing good back in the fall, and then Terry was gone for about 3 weeks. And yeah, I mean, then McDonald's and Taco Bell became my best friend again, driving up there to try to get something to eat. So instead of cooking, and anyway, that's just kind of my downfall. It'd just be nice to be able to string together 6 months or a year, and stay on that path. So any advice either one of y'all want to throw out about that would be very helpful.
Yeah, a couple things. So the, the mindset of like what you look like, I do have like a quick, I've, being 300 pounds, I have always felt as though I was a big guy. And internally it was never quite enough. Like I would push myself so hard to like work out, to eat right, to the point where I made a comment to my wife one day that, man, I'm still, really fat. And she was like, dude, you realize that I can see your abs, right? And she made me take a picture, and like they weren't showing much, but you could see a couple of ab muscles. And that was a moment where like, like in our heads, we, for me anyway, even though I wasn't really that big anymore, I still felt really big. And I was working really, really hard on it. So like that internal mindset of like what you think of yourself is really important to make sure that you're telling yourself the truth there.
Yeah.
But, to the other question of like, how do you stick to it? You can't. Like, that's what I had to accept. I would go really hard for 3 months, and then I would cave.
Yeah.
And then I would beat myself up because I caved, and cave more because I beat myself up. And it would be this never ending spiral. And 3 months later, 2 months of those gains were gone. So I've really just come back to like the 80-20 principle, right? If you're doing the right thing 80% of the time, it's okay to go wild 20% of the time, right?
Yeah.
And be okay with that and be forgiving of yourself for it.
That's the thing, is that forgiveness, because you're exactly right. When you fall off the whatever you're doing, the eating, exercise, and I realize to lose weight, exercise doesn't need to be, we can lose weight with our diet 70-80% or whatever, but I just feel like I've got to have that exercise. It makes me feel so much better. But anyway, it doesn't matter if we're talking about diet, exercise, or whatever. It's like once you fall off, then it's like, so hard on ourselves. And then that non-forgiveness, and it's like, well, I've already, had 3 tacos. That, what's it gonna hurt? I'll have another, I'm gonna go ahead and eat bad today, and then tomorrow I'm gonna change, and then tomorrow, goodness knows, something else pops up to where, it just kicked that can down the road further and further.
Yeah. I also try and schedule things too. So, knowing that I'm going to be 80-20. So Saturday is kind of and I know some people don't like cheat days, but this is, for me, works well. On Saturdays, I do whatever I want. If I don't want to work out, I don't work out. If I want to eat pizza and ice cream, I do that. And having that schedule for me is actually really helpful, knowing that I'm going to have a 20% of going crazy. On Wednesday, when I have that craving, I just go, okay, let's write that down. You're going to have that on Saturday.
That's a good tip. I like that.
Yeah, just having something to look forward to, that helps.
The problem with that is once you do have the cheat day though, so for me on Saturday, I eat all, I have sugar and junk food in your body. Then on Sunday, you have that craving, and it's really hard to go back into it. So it doesn't work for everyone, but it definitely works for me. And it's something you can try.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm that way about, I guess I feel sometimes like I have to be totally strict and can't let anything creep back in, because just that one, that little door opening for me, it's like back in the day when they came out with the little Skinny Bell ice cream sandwiches. I mean, those are great, and they probably work well if you eat one, but if you eat a whole box of them, it's like, well, that was so good. Let me just have 6 of them,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm an ice cream fanatic too. And that's that's even harder to give up something that is, and we talked about this with the, more of a psychologist type person the other day, that, I grew up with ice cream. It was a reward. And so now I'm thinking about that instead of thinking about, hey, let's go celebrate and have some ice cream. It's like, you know what? I get on my TX band and do, 25 pull-ups or something, trying to shift that mindset from it. It's a reward, because I think it goes back to the validation of us, is that's what, growing up, that was always the reward or the treat, is, hey, let's stop by Dairy Queen, or let's go up to the soda fountain and, get a banana split. So trying to change that from, we can still celebrate, but now, it needs to be a physical activity, either walking or pulling up, doing something to better ourselves, better myself.
And Jeremy, you were talking about, I think it was you. Did you say something about meditating?
Yeah, I was just going to say kind of two things on what you're talking about there. One, I know for me, I sort of look at my weight issues as being a symptom of my emotional and mental health issues. So I can tell by looking in the mirror how much I still have to do inside. And that's where, for me, the more I meditate, the more that I do that sort of inner work, the more strength I find to do the outer work, to do the running and the other things. So that's something to consider. But also, I just want to commend you on the fact that you're on this journey. This is an incredibly difficult journey at any stage of your life.
Well, thanks.
But especially in a system where the food that is affordable and accessible is garbage.
Right.
So much of what you have available to eat goes against your body's biology and the way that it wants to live. So you're fighting a losing game almost every
Right.
biteful. And the amount of knowledge that I think you need from a nutrition standpoint is almost impossible, I think, for most people who have busy lives and things to do, because it's just not something that we're taught in a way that makes sense as we're growing up. And every ad is, oh, you deserve a treat today. Well, yeah, maybe, but maybe I don't. Maybe I'm just lazy. Maybe I just want to eat garbage because it tastes good. And then that makes me want to eat more garbage. So two things there, but one, I think that is really important, is I do think that for a lot of people, food is an escape from whatever the issue is that we're struggling with, whatever trauma we haven't dealt with from our childhood, whatever. So I do think that at least in my experience, and I'm no doctor here, the more work you can do sort of dealing with what's going on inside will allow you the freedom and the desire to do the work on the outside. And for me, exercise is almost never about building muscle or getting stronger, or it's all in my head. The more I run, the more I bike, the harder the yoga, whatever I'm doing to push my body is all about releasing those demons. I like the phrase I like to say is tired muscles quiet dark voices, because the more you quiet those dark voices, the more you're going to be able to live a healthier life and make better choices.
Yeah. No, and I think you're right. And that's something, I don't think we haven't really put this out there, but, because I think back about that, what am I not dealing with? Because it's just been so difficult. I've become to feel that if I wasn't dealing with not dealing with something, if there was an unresolved issue, it would be a lot easier. And so I'm actually going to do, I'll let Terry say the name of it. Reiki.
Well, I did my first Reiki session yesterday.
I'm actually going to go try that and see, it's supposed to be a big release with some things like that. So, I'm open to trying. I'm to the point in life that I want to make changes, and it's, things that I've done in the past just haven't really worked, or they worked. And then, like Zach said, you put it all back on eventually. And, I'm just ready to make a change, for a lot of reasons, but just to, get all this behind me. So
something to consider too, like you seem to be aware of the pattern, right? Like 2 or 3 months of this is going to fail me. So just when you go into whatever you're going into, I'm going to do this for I'm going to do this for a week. Next week, I'm going to do that. Like, just give yourself smaller goals, because none of us is going to stick to anything for a year, for 10 years, it's never going to happen. Too much is going to get in the way. But today I'm going to decide every day this week, I'm going to go walk for 20 minutes. Next week, it'll be 30 minutes, whatever it is. But just give yourself those smaller goals. And the more you pick up those little wins, the confidence grows, and you'll be able to score those bigger wins.
That's great
Yeah,
advice.
that's a good point, because I am too much in that, looking at a year, lifetime, or whatever it is, instead of just, and I guess this gets back to the meditation
Mhm.
and being in the moment, is just take it one meal at a time, one day at a time, one step at a time. And it's, I guess it's the other part, I have to say, is it's daunting, because it's like the impatience is all I can say, is like, and I think, why haven't I been impatient, putting on all this weight? Now all of a sudden I'm here, and now all of a sudden I'm impatient, and I want it all gone. It took years to get here. It may take years to get away from here, but it's like, no, if I do something, if I go out and walk around the block, I expect to come home and have lost 15 pounds or something, something,
Exactly. Yeah.
something ridiculous like that. And it's like, it's just take it that it, whatever I did today, exercise wise and eating wise, that's better than what I was yesterday.
Exactly.
And trying to break it down into those smaller wins is definitely something I can work on for sure.
Yeah. And have you guys done a plant-based diet? We're delving into that now. Do you know much about the plant-based?
I'll let Jeremy talk about that, because I am a carnivore, and I love hamburgers and steaks and chicken.
Oh, okay.
So I think I've tried it once or twice for maybe a couple of days. And while I'm sure there are some health benefits, and I'm sure there's some good stuff about it, I just really enjoy hamburgers. So Jeremy's the vegetarian though, so he can talk about it.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
didn't. Okay.
Yeah, I've been a vegetarian for probably 25 years.
Oh,
With occasional cheats here and there. But I think, like any diet, if you don't do it right, it's just a mess. When I talked to a nutritionist at one point, and they said, I kind of told them what I ate, and they, oh, you're not a vegetarian, you're a cheese and breaditarian. And that's not good. You don't want to combine your fats and your carbs at every meal, because that's how you put on a bunch of weight. So definitely, I think any diet, if you do it well, is going to be beneficial. There are loads and loads of studies that will tell you a plant-based diet is ideal, is what you should be doing. But I read a book, man, I'm forgetting the author's name now, but he broke down diet in a really simple way. And it was just like, eat food, not too much. Oh, what's the third thing? Eat food, not too much. Oh, mostly plants. And his whole point was like, so much of what we eat is not food. So much of what is in the store is not food. If it didn't grow out of the ground or doesn't walk on the ground, it's not food. I eat Impossible burgers. I eat tons of like processed fake meats to get my protein, because I'm lazy and because I have childhood associations with, a meat and potatoes diet. So it's a lot of just conditioning that I need to break. But if you can eat, the more locally sourced and plant-based and not too much is a pretty simple rule to live by. And I definitely think it's worth experimenting with. If you haven't before, why not?
yeah, we haven't. And, we're into our second week, and I feel like we're doing good. And we're not the we'll never eat meat again. We were talking the other day that, if we get hungry for, Terry was craving a hamburger yesterday.
I wanted In-N-Out so bad.
And she had to go somewhere. And I said, well, just get it on, stop by and get one on your way. It's not a big deal. I think, because the other part of this is, I think the more you tell yourself, oh, you can't have that, the more, psychologically we want that. And so it's like, if we want to eat a piece of meat or a piece of fish, we can do it. But I just, I want to eliminate that, because I've gotten to feel how, when I eat beef, especially, it seems to weigh me down and bother me the next day, like not being able to get up. And I'm telling you that, I've felt my inflammation go down the last couple of weeks, and then also just being much easier flinging up out of bed with a lot of energy and feeling good. But it's have to be fair to say, that's not meat or beef or protein's fault. That's my fault for eating at the wrong time of day. And so that's another thing that we kind of have to talk about that goes with this. And we're doing the intermittent fasting. So we try to eat our last meal by 7, and then we're not eating again till lunch. And so I feel like that has been the most beneficial thing for me, because I'm a late night eater. I mean, at 9, 10 o'clock at night, man, I'm ready.
Popcorn comes out.
And before Terry, man, I would physically get in the car at 9 o'clock at night and go up to the convenience store and raid the shelf, get the little nacho bowl and a candy bar and come home and eat it. And it's something about going to bed feeling that full, uh, satisfied feeling. And so trying to get rid of that, as well as the other thing, I kind of laugh about, is that if I get just a little twinge of hunger or an empty stomach, I'm like, oh my God, that must be death knocking at my door. And so
Right.
it's trying to realize that, that feeling can be there for a couple hours and I'm probably not going to pass out or have any negative reaction. So,
Yeah.
because that's something that's like, oh my God, I felt my stomach. I need to run to the cabinet and load up on something,
Yeah. So I intermittent fast most days. It's actually 1:30 p.m. here right now, and I still haven't eaten anything. I probably won't until dinner at this point, just because if I eat now, my dinner will be ruined, like my dad would always tell me. But intermittent fasting is great, and it really teaches you the difference between I'm actually hungry for food and my body is craving food and I need the energy from food, and I have something emotional or mental going on that I
Yes.
want to go crack the cupboard open for. And I did a 3-day fast one day, or over 3 days. I did 3 days, and that was such an eye-opening moment because you go 3 days without actually eating anything, but all of these little, I had all these moments of like, I need to go eat. Why? Oh, you're about to do a task that is hard or something that you want to avoid or
Yep.
remind you of something. I had all these connections in those 3 days of why I wanted to go eat, and none of it had anything to do with being hungry. It was a really great realization.
That's awesome. And I'm going to brag. I don't usually do that.
I was going to do that.
I want to brag a little bit about last night. So I was sitting here putting together one of our episodes, and I don't even know why. I just got up, went to the cabinet, opened it, and this is like what, 9:30. Got up, went to the cabinet, opened it up, and it was chickpeas. So I mean, I have to say it wasn't like Doritos, but and I had the chickpeas out. I had them open. I had my hand in it, and I thought, why am I eating these? It's 9 o'clock. I'm not supposed to be, I don't want to be doing this because it'll make me, and I actually put them up without eating them. So
Nice.
for me, that's a huge victory, because what I have found too is that it's that mindless eating. Like in the past, I would have gone over there, ate a handful of something, and then, 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, realized, wow, I wish I hadn't done that. Or, why I wasn't hungry. It was just a habit. So, yeah, I'm kind of fighting that too, is just breaking these mindless habits of always feeling like you have to have something in your hand to eat.
And good for you though. You were at the point of no return. That's hard to turn back from that point.
It was so bad, I actually had to wash my hands to get all the salt off of my hands. I had my hand that far.
He was ready.
We had a really interesting conversation a few episodes ago. We had a guest, Dr. Judson Brewer, and he's really big on curiosity when it comes to breaking habits and whether it's addiction, food, whatever. And we talked about that specific thing. And because I'm the same way, I have to fast. Otherwise I will 9, 10 o'clock. Where's the popcorn? Where's something quick that I can just emotionally escape into? And
Yep.
he raised the point. He's like, just get really curious every time that those urges come up, rather than giving into them, rather than fighting them, rather than like having this sort of volatile relationship with that experience. Just get really curious with it. Why do I need to eat right now? Is my body sending me a signal that says, hey, you're really hungry and you're about to snap somebody's head off? Or are you bored? Are you sad? Are you lonely? What's driving this? And it is amazing how just asking yourself, why am I doing this, will completely shift your relationship with that moment, and to put you on a course to your bigger, better offer, right? Your bigger, better goal of, I want to feel better. I don't want to wake up with this Dorito hangover. I want to wake up clear of brain fog and ready to take on the day, and know that I don't need to eat until lunch because I'm not going to starve. I'm in one of the wealthiest countries in the world. I'll find food somewhere.
Right. And the paramedics are at 911. They're just a moment away anyway. They give me an IV and get me back up on the ground.
I don't think they deliver Doritos anymore, though.
Yeah. Well, by the way, go buy QT and grab us some bags of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, that's I guess a good question for you guys, since y'all are pretty far down the journey. But one I was just thinking about the name of our podcast is Feeding Fatty, and it was kind of an irreverent comment when we were kicking it around, because I just said, we're trying to find a name, and all the healthy ones are taken or sound too corny, so we were like, and I just said, yeah, we could just say something like, feed no fatty. And Terry said, yeah, that's it. But the other thing I think about it is that I think I will always be, even if I lost weight and got to where I want to be, I feel like I will always be that heavy person inside that I always have to be on guard. It's like, and I'm going to ask, I'll ask this question of both of y'all, but it's like being a reformed smoker, being a reformed drinker, because I never smoke like packs and packs a day, but, on the weekends may have one. And there are times that cigarettes, you smell very good. I mean, they smell good enough you could eat one. And it's like, I'm not even really a smoker, but that temptation is always there. I assume the temptation is always going to be here with food, that it's something you got to fight forever, or not fight, but deal with, put it that way.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's always there. There's like Jeremy said, right? There's a whole industry on making sure that, this kind of food is there, and there's marketing, and it's made to make you want more. But, the way I've tried to live is, for every single attempt that I've made at eating healthier, a little bit of it has stuck. And then the next time a little more has stuck. And the next time a little more has stuck. And, now if I look back, like, I had to take my mom somewhere one day, and she wanted to go to McDonald's, and I had been eating healthy for 3 months, and I ate McDonald's, and I felt so bad after eating McDonald's, like brain fog, my body hurt, my stomach was doing somersaults. And even the next day, for a couple of days, I didn't feel good. And I thought about it, and I was like, okay, I have now conditioned myself to feel good when I eat good food, because 20 years ago, I would eat McDonald's for lunch and dinner, and then I'd go back for a snack. And that was just normal for me. So every time I've tried to eat healthy, right, you're just going to reinforce it a little bit more and a little bit more, and you're going to fail, and you're always going to go backwards. But, for me, that's always been the case. Like now, where I'm at now, while I still don't feel like I eat as well as I want to eat, I look back at the journey and how much it's different, how much change there is, how much those little steps have now added up to this one big thing where I'm doing pretty well. I could still grow, but I'm doing pretty well.
And it's good that you realize that now, because you guys have young kids too, right? I mean,
yes,
you
9-year-old.
have to factor a 9-year-old. You have to factor all of that in, and what your world can handle, and how much time you have, and trying to do. That's what we just get caught up in the rat race of going through the drive-through, having everything right there at our beck and call. That's got to be an issue too. I mean, that part of it.
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, having my daughter watch what I'm doing, right? For me, it's, I watched my dad, I watched my mom, and it was poor choices. And then those poor choices lived on in me. So it's my responsibility to kind of break that chain and have my daughter watch me make good choices most of the time, with the occasional reward, right? And break that chain so she doesn't grow up in the same way, having those, the poor relationship with food that I always had.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I always, I have, my daughters are almost 23 and 29 now. And I used to tell them all the time.
Hey, wait a minute. I thought you were only 35.
I'm sorry. Did I say 9? And whoops, let the cat out of the bag there. But I used to tell them all the time, and I still do, just joking with them, add that to your list for your future therapist. That's just something that you're going to have to, but the more that like you were saying, your daughter's 9 and she needs to sort of emulate you and your decision, your choices, so she doesn't have to deal with this later on in life.
Yeah, trust me, there's plenty of other things that I'm doing that is going to need therapy later on in life. So
yeah, She'll have a running list. It'll go forever.
She has a little
One of the
notebook
things-
that says notes to my future therapist.
Do not get rid of that. I mean, gold frame it.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is that I'm getting to a point of, we start thinking about outliving our wellness, and that's something, a new little catchphrase that we like to use is because, you see so many people that they age and either they've got a good mind and their body's broken down, or their body's broken down and they still have a good mind. And a lot of times they have to have intensive care from somebody else, a family member typically. And so, at some point I've started really thinking that one through that, I wish I'd have started earlier, but it's never too late to start. But, the sooner we can think about what are we going to look like when we're 80, because, nowadays they talk about diabetes, or they talk about dementia being the type 3 diabetes. And just some of the things that we have done with the quality of food that we've eaten, and it really can lead to our detriment. And sometimes that doesn't manifest it until later in life.
Yeah, the
It's something
closer we get to that. Go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, I was just gonna say that's something that I think about a lot too. I've had a number of friends and family members that have had cancer, and I always think it's so interesting how we sort of need that you're gonna die really soon unless you start eating this way. And I constantly say to myself, get online and Google what your doctor would prescribe if you were diagnosed with cancer, and start eating that right now. Like, why? It seems really simple. There's an outline, there's a nutrition plan to fight off cancer, but we don't start eating it until we have it.
Exactly.
So I think about that a lot, but I also think that is one of those things similar to, I'm going to do this for a year, I'm going to do this for 5 years. If I worry about how I'm going to feel in 30 years, I'm going to lose sight of what do I need to do today. And so to me, it's those baby steps. It's whatever I can do today to be a little bit better than I was yesterday is ultimately what's going to happen when I'm 65, 70, whatever, and look back and go, oh, I made good choices. I did the best I could with what I knew.
And that's what we just got a book. It's called How Not to Die. And it's amazing, but it talks about all those different diseases, the type 2 diabetes, cancers, like just all of that, and inflammation. And that's why we decided to kind of go with the plant-based diet, because, we have different medications that we're on for different things. And, just trying to get off of those, you can get off of those medications through eating properly, what you eat.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of turned us toward that direction. Not only that, but, because it's better for us not to pack on the pounds and all of that.
Sure.
I know we're way long on time, guys, but just one more topic I want to bring up is the the emotional, because we're talking about this. And another big thing I'm struggling with and trying to break is that not necessarily like the bad stuff, but more the good stuff, the celebrations. Everything is emotional, like let's go eat or get the ice cream for this to celebrate, but also factoring in or thinking about it as fun, because going out with friends and family, and you go somewhere and you eat and chat, and the reality is we can go eat healthy, but we can go chat with people and not have to eat bad or eat food that is not as good for us as we would like. And so and I tell the story that it's very fresh in my mind that Terry was out running around one day and she called and said, I'm on my way home. Have you eaten yet? And I said, no. And so I started welling up inside, like, she's going to say, great, I am going by Chick-fil-A to pick up some stuff. And then she's like, okay, well, there's some salmon and some asparagus in their fridge. And I just felt like I just was deflated. It was like all the air just blew out of me. And that, again, it's a realization that, oh my gosh, you have this such an attachment to food that what does it matter? Does it really matter if I ate the whatever I eat? It's as long as it's healthy and it gives me fuel to live for another day. That's really all this is about. But all these attachments that we have, it's just crazy.
I know in my case, all of that links back to sugar. The more sort of processed and sugary foods, I have the way easier it is to cave into those cravings, to cave to those emotions and eat that way. I mentioned that I started doing the keto diet after a conversation with Zach, and I wasn't even that strict about it. I just went, you know what? I'm just 100 carbs a day. That's it. That's my limit. I'm going to experiment with that and play with that, see where that leads me. And I got more and more strict about it. And I started working out every day and doing these things. And it was so funny because I distinctly remember this day at work when one of my colleagues was eating wheat thins. She's just sitting at her desk snacking. And I mean, she was like a cheerleader for the Houston Rockets. I mean, she's in fantastic shape and she can eat whatever she wants. So she offered me some, and I looked at it, and it was as though she was offering me a hockey puck to eat. I was like, that's not even food. Like, what you're asking by offering me this, I can't even process that as a question because you're not offering me food. My relationship just completely changed with those kinds of foods because I had just so completely cut them out of my diet and was feeling so good that I was like, it just doesn't, 2 and 3 makes 47. That does not compute. I can't do that. So just changing that relationship was huge for me. And again, not to be repetitive, but I just think that why question is going to be the thing that is a game changer for so many people. When I still get an occasional craving to drink beer, I love beer, love it, delicious, amazing. It causes more problems for me than solves them. Although it does solve some problems too. But by shifting to non-alcoholic beers, I've found some really high-end ones that are really good, that taste like real beer. So you mentioned those reward systems and like the hanging out with friends. I can drink those and have that in my hand, and it feels exactly the same as it used to, only I don't wake up feeling horrible the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I quit drinking probably 5 years ago now too. So I was going to use that as an example. It was a very hard thing to do because of my friend group, I was the first one to do it. And then but one of the things we would do is we would meet at a pub to socialize, and everyone would drink beer. And I was showing up and not drinking beer, and I was drinking water. And it was really hard to do mentally, right? Because you're going to drink beer. But from the food perspective, I will say, I said it earlier, like I did a 3-day fast, and having, that data of really reflective moments of why am I hungry?
Yeah.
Like, what is the real reason here? I know I'm not going to die. What's the real reason? And just exploring that and being curious about it. And I think that's one of the things that's really helped me is the curiosity, having the the courage and to be brave enough to explore that stuff. Because if we're all being honest, right, you open some of those doors, you don't want to look inside, right? You want to keep them closed. But if you can get to the underlying problem as to what's going on, right, it really does change your relationship now. So now my reward for, hey, I want to go eat something. My reward is I go do 10 push-ups.
Yeah.
I've switched it.
If I can jump on something you said there too, even it doesn't always have to be the dark demon in the closet. Like I know for me, I have a habit of during my workday, I need a reason to get up and walk away from the desk. And way too often it's go grab a snack from the kitchen. It used to be go across and get another cup of coffee and a snack from the kitchen or whatever. And when I get real honest with myself, the reason I'm doing it is I don't like my job. I don't want to be doing it. So I will come up with any distraction to go do something else, even if it's for 2 minutes and even if it poisons my body. So that's not like, dad beat me up when I was 3. That's just, hey, I got to find another job. This isn't working out for me. So it doesn't always have to be facing your deepest, darkest fears. Sometimes it's just overcoming whatever the small hurdle is that's right in front of your face.
Yeah. Or feeling like we need that reason. Cause I'm the same way. I mean, like, I love my job, thank goodness, but it's like, tasked within that, you bump up against something that's kind of hard. It makes you have to sit and think, and I'm the same. Then it's like, well, let me just get up and get something to eat while I think about this. So, and the other thing too, is like, I feel so much better if I just go for a walk. If I take the same 5 minutes and go outside, fresh air, and clear my head, I would come back and even perform better. But not eating and then feeling bad, and talking about the beer and stuff, around here, going and having some Mexican food with margarita and some chips. But I'm telling you, I could, and it wasn't a hangover, but I could drink one margarita and the chips, and I could feel so bad the next morning till 10 or 11 o'clock. It just a cloud, and feel like from my eyes and above was just full of congestion. And so that's been a big reason for me to switch some things and not to go do that, is because I just got where it makes me so feel so bad the next day. Trying to get out from under it got worse and worse. So
yeah, your body is going to be the best teacher in all of this. Is just pay attention to what happens after you eat or do whatever it is you're going to do, and you'll make the right choices.
Guys, I know we're way late. Before we go, a couple things. What is a tool, a habit? What is something that each of y'all do in your daily life that adds a lot of value, professional, personal, whichever?
Yeah. So I want to make sure I mention something that I haven't mentioned already. So, as weird as this sounds, journaling for me is a huge one. And I currently use a product called the Full Focus Planner, and it's just a kind of a methodology and this planner that you get your 3 biggest things done, and you schedule everything. And within that, it's professionally, personally, right? I schedule my healing time. I schedule my work time. I schedule my family time, and it allows me to be productive and not put things off. But it also gives me a place to get my thoughts out on a piece of paper, because once they're out of my head, they're not circling around and causing trouble anymore. So, and that's my own preference for journal. But if you can just spend a couple of minutes with yourself, getting the thoughts out of your head onto a piece of paper and being grateful about it, it can make a huge difference in your day.
Yeah.
Way to steal my thunder, Zach. I'm going to say the exact same thing. It is so important to me every day to envision the day the way I want it to go, so that when I do run up against those roadblocks and I feel like, oh, I need to, I want to eat something, I want to not work out, I can look back and go, well, what did I tell myself this morning when I was alert and on it and focused and knew what I wanted out of life? And I can refer to that. And it really keeps me accountable. Most days, what I wrote down doesn't happen. A lot of it does, some of it doesn't. And that's, again, getting comfortable with forgiving yourself and forgiving that you cannot create the exact life you want, but you can work toward goals. Yeah. And the closer you get, the better you'll feel along the way. And then, just in terms of something practical or something more tangible that I have been experimenting with, and it might sound weird, and this is probably a whole other show, but I've been experimenting with using CBD as a supplement. And because I've found that it really regulates my anxiety and my depression, and it helps keep me focused. And it's not, there's no high, there's no psychotropic effect. It's about balancing your body's natural cannabinoids to a level that is the way they should be functioning, that so many things like diet and busy lifestyle interfere with.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. And the journaling, it's funny you mentioned it, because I've been trying to do better about that. And, not just, and I think, like Zach said, it seemed like just getting things, they didn't have to be stressed, but just getting the thought, whatever it is, out of my head and on paper, it just seems to be so much more clearing. I feel like I've had a clearer head, doing it too. So.
Yeah. And Zach, you mentioned it's so important to be grateful. I mean, just think about being grateful at least a few times a day, that has a lot to do with it. Just keeping that positivity going.
Yeah. Most of us have a lot to be thankful
Yes,
for.
we do.
We just gotta, instead of getting focused on that negative and why we want to go eat, because let's focus on all the great things. We talk a lot about that too. If you got 10 things on your to-do list today and you get 7 done, we beat ourselves up over these other 3, but let's celebrate the 7, and let's take away some gratitude. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up, you guys. We could talk for a lot longer. So thank y'all. Tell everybody, of course, how can they reach out and get a hold of y'all, talk about your podcast?
The website is thefitmess.com, and we're Fit Mess Guys on pretty much every social platform that's out there.
Okay. All right. Well, great. Well, thanks so much. Y'all can find us, of course, at www.feedingfatty.com. We're on all the major social media platforms as well. That's the major podcast platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, Google, Spotify. If we're not on one that you listen to, please reach out. Be glad to get it added. So till next time, I'm Roy.
I'm Terry.
Take care of yourself and take care of your family.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.